It's the What Are You Driven By podcast, where we dive deep to see what motivates and drives our community's best leaders. We're back on the What Are You Driven By podcast, and today I have a really special guest here with me. I have Tan Chrissis all the way from London, England. And Tan Chrissis is a speaker and a mindset coach, and you're gonna want to hear what he's got to say. So Tan, do you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so I'm Tan Chrissis, based out of London. I've been in the industry now for about 15 years, mentoring and enabling people to find their true purpose. But it's also been in the corporate environment, engaging with anyone that's entering the corporate environment, starters, interns that are coming in to test out the roles. And I designed the program around my mentorship program just to teach people purpose. Because if you have purpose, either in the workplace, externally, you can also drive to anywhere that you need to go to. And then from there, I work with large organizations like Barclays, BT, and most recently Travelers, which are based out in the US, but they were called Simply Business. And then from there, it's just managing small developer teams to actually externalize digital products on the digital market space. And from there, it just evolved. It started growing, having different mentors and different mentees in the program. And the way I got more delved into being a mentor and a coach was a situation that happened to me back in 2023. Now, the situation was a newcomer came in from the US market space. He was a head of product, and he was asking me, "Hey, Tan, people, I didn't know who you are, but I keep on hearing your name, and what do you do here?" So I explained what I did and how I mentored different people. And he came back in 2 weeks and was like, "Do you mind mentoring me? I know I'm higher than you, but I'd like to build that kind of understanding and do some reverse mentoring." So I was like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And every Wednesday we'd jump on a call and we'd just talk about purpose-built activities, visualization, from visualization, how then you use your planning, bringing more permanence to time management. And then with time management, you look at what your values are, what your values then lead to your behaviors. And we did that for about 4 months. And things went all quiet. Returned back to work, and as he was in the United States, we never knew everything that happened with teams in the United States. Didn't know. We got a notice that he'd no longer been with the company. And I think around Christmas time, I got a call from the US. I was like, "Oh, US, it must be like Wes." And it wasn't. It was Luna Dollar, his partner at the time, and she goes, "Look, I don't want to put it on social media. I've read everything that you've been doing with Wes, all of the coaching, all of the messages, all of the enablement around business and entrepreneurship, and how you were driving his entrepreneurial side back into existence, because you work in corporate, you sometimes lose that entrepreneurial aspect because you're in a corporate environment, I'm in a steady job. It's that aspect." And she broke the news that he basically took his life due to mental health issues, and she didn't want to put it out in social media before speaking to me directly, just from what she read. So I think that was the catalyst for me to then say, "Hey, what am I doing in this corporate world?" And he was a big component of trying to push me to take what I was doing over a decade in corporate world, take it out to the world, take it away from that, and actually write up all the course criteria that I was doing, all of the coaching, but amalgamate that into a program that then I could then surface out to anyone. And yeah, I started doing that from March of 2024. It's been a roller coaster, and that's where I met you. We met up at an event
in LA.
Yeah, in LA. I ended up being in LA. I always live for the moment. Just take the risk.
That's true.
I think you only live once, yeah? So if you live it well, once is enough. So you have to understand that kind of purpose that I have. So I live full. I have a mindset of an Epicurean, I should say.
Ooh,
yeah. So
yes.
that's another Greek school that no one talks about.
Yes.
So yeah, we can go further into that. But yeah, that's me.
Wow, you gave us a lot there, and I personally know your story, and as I was listening to it again, I just realized some of the synergies that we have, like even what you're doing with purpose coaching and what I'm doing with Driven By. There's the same foundation is there, and it's all about figuring out what those values are, what drives you, and then from there you can build, and the foundation is stronger. And so you talked a lot about taking that into the corporate world and using that to sort of expand what the possibilities are for you and the amount of lives that you were able to touch. So I want to kind of go through your experience, because you have a wealth of experience and a wealth of knowledge, and some that even you guys don't even know quite yet. But let's go into the corporate world. And you mentioned you managed a lot of developer teams.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that look like for you in terms of lessons in leadership?
So I think there's two types of leadership, and you'd have to understand both. And I find it comes also from the schooling criteria, the way we teach people. And in leadership, you have to learn two styles of teaching. There's a style that teaches when I can tell you something and talk you through something. And then there's a visualization style where I write it down with you and we go through it and you visualize it and see it on paper. Because you have two types of people. There's the people that can take it in verbally, and then the people that actually have to see it and write it down to understand it. And then that's the kind of training styles you should enable. And it doesn't matter what environment you are in, corporate or non-corporate. You take those two styles, and that's how you start building teams.
Gotcha. And so does that mean that you adapt your style based on the team member?
Yeah, because
Okay.
everyone's an individual, yeah? And you might have a team, but I don't believe in like calling it a one-to-one.
Okay.
I always call it a coffee catch-up.
Okay.
You know, because it's a bit more relaxed. A one-to-one is like, oh, I'm going into a one-to-one. Whereas if you just have a coffee catch-up and understand the person, and especially when you're bringing someone new into the team, understand what their values are.
Yeah.
Do they meet your team values? Yeah. Sometimes are they coachable as well? Because if they're not coachable, what other training aspects can you have to adapt to?
Yeah.
Because everyone learns in a different way. So he might not be coachable in one way, but might be really coachable in another way. But you have to single out how that person is. Working with developers, they're very introverts as well. I find a lot of them are introverts. So they can really work well in front of their computer screens and develop a series of code, refactoring. They can do that really well. But if you get them to speak about what changes they've made, the enablements they've done, it's really difficult for them because it comes out of their comfort zone, out of their areas. So I had a little bit of training techniques that were not the kind of corporate ones you'd imagine.
Oh, tell us more.
So if I had someone that had to present or present to leadership, instead of telling them, oh, take me through your slides and read me through your slides, that's just going to make them a bit more insecure because of their tone and am I reading it correctly? What I used to do is take them out of the working environment and we'd go and have some fun as like a group doing improv. So then we'd do improv classes, and when we're standing there becoming a kettle and someone's pouring you or someone's a door and you open them and then you'll ask them, no, now you're not a door, now you're the cupboard. So, and now you're the door. And they were having to like change what they were. It then really elaborated them to think on the spot.
Yeah.
But they were like, why are we doing this? And I said, oh, tomorrow you can present me. And then they'd be presenting and someone from the team would ask them a question, but then they could go back to it. And they were like, this is like the improv class we did. You switched it up, but now I understand why you did that.
Wow.
Because by me having to think on the spot in an improvisation class, I'm now using the improv in my presentation skills. So I don't get flustered if I get asked a question by one of you. I know how I can get right back to where I was. So yeah, I told you to be a table and then you were a chair, but then I told you to come back to being a table. And those kind of techniques really help from that perspective. But it also pulls out the introvert out of them because they're on stage.
Yeah.
You know, they've never been on stage. It's not something. But when they're in a team and we're all having fun, it's just fun.
Yeah.
So that kind of molds them coming out of that introvert state.
Yeah. If I must say, brilliant. Brilliant. I think that is a very unique way to bring out, to not only help them overcome that shyness and that lack of comfort, but also to give them the skills to think on the spot. And so all these little things that you were able to figure out, whether it's the approaches to leadership and understanding the learning styles and giving them unique ways to overcome these challenges, from the time that you started in the workforce to becoming a leader, like how did you learn that you needed to do those things? Like what does that transition period look like for you where you thought, okay, I'm transitioning into leadership, now I've got to put on a different mindset here?
I always read a lot of books, and I'm a massive Simon Sinek fan. Yeah, and I've read all of his books. But I also think he has a message around the workforce and like an enablement message, but not only enablement message for the employee, but how an employer should act. So like leaders eat last, yeah? You know?
Yeah.
So do what you expect your colleagues to do, they should actually see you doing it.
Yeah.
And I picked these skills up from not being only in the corporate environment. I used to work for TGI Fridays, and we had little things that we picked up from each other. So like elastic band theory, you could stretch us to a certain point, but don't stretch us until we snap.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that leeway, but when it's coming to that taunting point where it might snap, a relationship might snap, or someone might snap, we bring it back together, we bring those individuals back together and learn from it. And that's both from a leadership perspective, because you have to understand when that's happening, both from your side and both from your staffing side. We also had like a swan theory. Always, as a leader, work really hard, yeah?
Okay.
But you don't have to actually show it. So as a swan swims on a lake,
Yeah.
their feet underneath the water are working so really, really fast.
Wow.
But when they're floating along the water, you don't notice how fast they're working.
Wow.
Yeah? So if you don't show your stress levels as a leader, it doesn't then pass that on to your team. So always float like a swan, but underneath all that stress that's happening, all that work that you're doing, it never passes on to your teams as a leader.
You know what's so interesting? I've actually heard that theory before, but I've never heard it called swan theory. It was duck theory. And a friend of mine said the same thing. It's you have to move on the surface so smoothly, but yet all these inner workings and all this work is underneath the surface. And you're right, if you don't show it, then it doesn't alarm anyone, and you can simply, you know, influence and impact people and move around the room in such a way where it's...
And they want to move like you. You know,
Exactly.
oh, look how beautiful that swan is moving on a lake.
Right.
We can do it too,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Let's do the same thing. And you lead by example. That's when
Exactly.
you say you lead by example. And I think you should also understand your team's metrics as well. I think that's a big learning curve I had to do, especially with such a young and then old community that you work with. Each people work differently, you know? They sort of say it's old school methods or this, but some of the old school guys have a lot of knowledge that was around before you. So try and sit around them, see how they speak. I used to shadow a lot. I should have shadow leadership. So if I wanted to be like a leader that I saw around an office space, I'd do the coffee chat. Hey, do you mind if I buy you a coffee and sit down? And then I'd ask them, do you mind if I shadow you once a week? And then you just pick up the different styles that you like from different leaders. Yeah. And then you know then to incorporate into your style of leadership.
So what would you say is your favorite style that you've witnessed or shadowed?
I like a leader that enables their team to go off and do it themselves. Okay. So it gives enough instructions and enough elasticity, as we say, that the team is enabled. I'm more of a visionary, Being in product, it was all around visionary development, developing visions, developing new ideas, new techniques. And you have to think outside the box really much. And that's how I tried to do my leadership. It used to have to be a little bit outside the box. And you give the team an agile, do things in small portions, but then when the workload's coming onto the team, make sure you're the first shield so they don't find it. Go back and do the pushbacks to the leadership teams, because there could be one message coming through, but if you've got a small team, manage and maintain that. So say, hey team, how much can we do this week? For instance, when you're writing stories, and we can do this many releases. Okay, sure. So in 2 weeks, we can do 15 releases with a team. Then I'd go back to leadership and say, hey, we're at capacity at 15. Which project would you like us to drop?
Okay, yeah, prioritize.
Yeah, you can prioritize for me. We've prioritized what you've said to us in the past. Which one do we drop to then prioritize the next instance? Because if you can't do that, you will then be putting pressure that we won't deliver anything because we're trying to prioritize far too many things for the size of the team.
Yes.
So then they'd go back, okay, maybe you can drop X stories and take on these stories because that's more of a priority for us.
Okay.
And I find leadership usually get things wrong around road mapping. Everything is feature-based road mapping. We need to release this feature, we need to release X feature. But in leadership, you should look at it in another way. It's more around outcome-based road mapping. So look at what is the outcome that it would do for the consumer? What is the outcome it would do for your team? Which quick celebrations can you do? So instead of saying we need to reduce speed of click rate here, how many more customers will stay on our page longer if we took it down a notch?
I see.
So you're reversing it. So the team is like, no, I'm helping the customer there. Oh no, I'm reducing the click rate. So you see how the message you have to change. So the leadership will say to you one thing, I need you to reduce the load speed. But then you revert the message, what's the outcome? How fun will it be for our customer to have a load up page? What would that do to our consumers?
Gotcha.
Would that keep them there longer?
Yeah, small shifts in mindset.
Mindset and language.
Yes.
Because you don't filter the same language down. Yeah? Because sometimes it's not understood because you're kind of in between. And then when you become a leader, you then have to understand. You're saying it to run a business. But your business terms do not go back to your team because your team are not running the business. Yeah? They're enabling your business. So you then need to enable the message to allow them to enable your business to grow.
Yeah, this is so true. And the thing is, I love how involved you are in the process because you're interconnected with the team. So knowing their learning styles and how they prefer to be managed, it allowed you to filter those things out and communicate with them in a way that was best for them. And it's funny you said that because a stat came to my head. Managers have a greater impact on your mental health than doctors and therapists.
It's true.
Yeah.
Know why?
Because you spend more time with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your team become your family.
Yeah.
And if you can't actually feel enablement from your team or your management, why are you spending 8 hours a day with them?
Exactly.
And that 8 hours a day is just a day. Do it 5 days a week.
Yeah.
What does that do to your mindset?
Exactly.
What does that do to enabling someone?
Absolutely. And so it's
a third of your life sometimes when you think of it.
Right.
If you're employed for 60 years, it's a third of your life of that 60 years that you're spending with people, around managers.
So it's so important. And there's such a lack of training for managers. There's another stat that the majority of managers don't get their first leadership training until they're in their 40s.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But I think it's then on the person that wants to become a manager to take that on board themselves to actually start doing the leadership training.
Yeah.
Because if you're waiting for someone to teach you,
and
you're not teaching yourself, you're enabling those behaviors.
Exactly. So, question for you, because there's a lot of difficulty around engaging employees. And so, have you ever come across an employee or a team member that was disengaged? And what was your strategy to engage them?
I'm thinking. So an employee that's disengaged, like disengaged with your thought patterns, disengaged, I'd basically, rather than engaging with them in a way that, oh, I need to engage with you, I need to engage with you, I'd say to them, rather than a formal engagement, I'd make them to engage with the team. So one of the activities I used to do is, if they're less engaged in the team, to make a more team-orientated thing. So it'd be Fun Fridays, I used to call it. So Fun Fridays would be a Pictionary game where we all would have to engage to guess what the piece of people were drawing. You know? So you're drawing a character and you're typing in what it is. It's like, I think it was Scribble at the time we were using. And what we found is, as they were enjoying the Fun Fridays, it actually made them feel a part of the team more. Whether they're a new member or whether they're disengaged.
Yeah.
And then that enabled us to, like, hey, great job there, you know?
Yeah.
You did really well. Or I used to stick them in, we'd go off on every month to a escape room.
Oh, wow.
So you're either going to get engaged with a team and build some kind of camaraderie, or you're not going to escape.
Right.
Whoever escapes the first gets the first round free on me. So whoever's first out that door, or which team's out there. So I used to split the teams up into 2 escape rooms. That'd be the equal time. So it takes 60 minutes to escape from each room.
There you go.
And then whoever got out first, I'd buy them the first round of drinks.
There you go.
And it made teams know that you're on my side then.
Yeah.
You know, oh, he's done it for me. And then we'd then swap over. It'd be, I'd go and sit with a team that we felt maybe were less engaged.
Yes.
Yeah? So then I'd be in a room with them. So what, we have to escape here, don't we?
Oh, I see.
You know? So you're going to have to engage with me. I'm going to have to engage with you.
Yeah.
But it's a fun way of engaging. Not like, I'll pull you to the side. Is it something to do with my style? What is it about me? What is it about you? If you make it the me, you thing and not the team, people then think, oh, you're coming directly for me. Or you're coming directly at me. But when you're all in a room and you all have to engage, the person that's less engaged, he'll kind of feel like, I need to start treading my weight now.
Yes.
And it's just those easy subconscious things that you do subconsciously that starts switching them on to be part more of the team.
Yes.
Now, if those styles don't work, we'll then sit down and say, hey, do you really want to be a part of this team? What is it about this team that you don't like? You know? And have that open conversation. Be very open with your staff. I think if there's not a fit, sometimes no one's going to fit. Or your team doesn't fit, the dynamics, the background. What I then do is then engage with teams that have open members. Shall we move you? Should we do a swap?
Yeah.
And you'd put it out there, hey, do you want to take... It's nothing that he's anything against the staff member, he just doesn't fit the camaraderie that we have.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, when you have such a good team having so much fun, the Slack channels would be like, oh, what you were doing this... Oh, we're doing Fun Friday. What's that? Oh, well, we all get together and we play silly games online, because it was more of an online behind Zoom. So we even done escape rooms via Zoom.
Wow.
So we had one leader, and then we'd all be in the room and it'd be like, yeah, I'm going to turn right and I'm going to take this off the table. What do I have in my hand? You have a map.
Wow.
What does the map say? And you have someone walking through like a Dungeons and Dragons style mapped game. And that you know who really fits you and who doesn't. And it doesn't matter if they don't fit, but give them the opportunity out to say, hey, look, maybe we don't fit, but I want you to really do well in your career. Maybe I think you should, maybe you sit better in that style of management, or you'll fit better in this team because it's more your persona fits within that style.
So what I'm hearing is, in order to engage team members, it's really about the connection to the team and the team building and making them feel like they belong. And then if that doesn't work, it's almost like there's a lack of cultural fit. So there's a focus on team culture there and building that and maintaining it. And then that really illuminates who doesn't fit the culture, and perhaps you're just better suited to another team.
And culture is a big thing. I think cultural backgrounds is a massive thing, and having a diverse culture. Some team members would really like the music we would play, but other team members might not, because it's not culturally theirs. And you just fit the best teams around you. And I think that's it. Some people like pop, some people like R&B. Those two are never going to come together, You might get a mix in between it.
Maybe.
But you never know. But that's what I mean. There's people that will actually take both sides, but if they're far too much to one side, you can pull so much, as I said, the elastic band.
Yes.
But when it snaps, you can't join it up because that is already snapped.
And the thing is, different elastic bands have different tension.
Yeah.
Because there's some people who are more open-minded than others. And so perhaps you just have someone who's a little wound too tight and you can't open them up a bit.
I think it's also past experiences.
Yes.
I think that is also something that builds or embeds a culture in an individual. Has he been part of a team before? What a team is. Because sometimes people think they know what a team is, but then when you're just working with people and you don't do the extracurricular activities outside of what a team is, you don't really become a team. You just become work colleagues.
Yeah.
I work with you 8 hours. I don't know nothing about you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Kind of sit back and
sometimes the best thing is to turn over and say, hey, we're doing a report. Whoever's sitting next to you, find 3 funny facts about them.
There you go.
That we wouldn't know.
Small little things.
And then share it with us.
Yeah.
And you'll come up and share what your funny facts are.
There you go.
And then you switch them around and they can't say the same funny facts, so they'd have to learn something new about it.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's everyone learning something new all the time. I think because when you refresh something and someone learns something new about the individual that's in their team, not only does it create laughter, because some of the stuff that comes out, you're like, whoa, you didn't even know that. You? Really?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. It's like, how do I put it? We're driving in a car, for instance, listening to hip-hop music. You'll be like, oh, I've not heard that. But then you don't expect it and you learn something new about someone. It's like, those are the kind of things that really build teams. And
it's like micro team building.
Yeah, a little bit of micro here and here. And then when you feel that you know the team and the people feel that they know you and they know members in their team, they open out more. They open out more. That silly side comes out a little bit more. And then the seriousness comes in, like when we are in the trenches, we'll work 24/7 to get this because I'm with you and you're with me. And I know you've got my back, I've got your back. So if we do have to do an extra hour, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm not scared.
Yeah. So, question for you. You've had the difficult times with team members and you've learned how to do all these strategies and micro team building to build the strength and connection on your team. And it seems like it's worked out for you. So if you were to pass on some advice to someone who's new to leadership, what would be that piece of advice?
I'd always say to any leader, figure out what type of a leader you want to be. Because when you understand what leader you are, you then learn how to lead. Yeah. So find your style, find what environment suits you as well, because different environments in corporate worlds meet certain things. So being a tech leader is completely different to being a banking leader. Being a telco leader is completely different to being a banking leader. So the industry is also specific to the kind of leadership styles as well, because there's different expectations for leaders. You can overarch, give a big thing and you're a leader, but different styles for different teams. So if you want to be a tech leader, you need to be more focused around small teams that are introverted and understand how do you bring out the extrovertness. But other teams might be like in finance, where they are on a trading floor and they're extroverts and they're, I want this. That takes another kind of leader.
Right.
So I always say is your style of leadership is in the environment that you also want to be in. So tailor it to the industry you want to be in, but understand who you'll be a leader of. Yeah, because you can have a difference in that. So my advice is learn the industry you're in, become specific to an industry leader, and then specify the size of teams you want to lead. Because when you're a leader and you're taking on 20 or 10 people, it's completely different leadership on the size of the team. So then you have to have a different kind of style. And then always have people that are honest around you as a leader. Because when you make a mistake, make sure your team are enabled to actually tell you they didn't feel comfortable in that instance. And I'd also say mentor leaders that you admire going into leadership. Go and ask for mentorship.
Yeah.
If you want to be like someone, figure out a loophole of spending more time with that person. Because that will teach you a style that you want to be.
Yeah.
Because if you put yourself around leaders you want to be, you'll learn. And you don't have to do it in a workplace.
Yeah.
There's something like in the UK we use Meetup, for instance. And it could be for leadership. And it's a load of leaders meeting up and speaking about leadership. So you might resonate with someone, you might not. And then you'd understand your purpose, your values as a leader. My purpose as a leader is X. My values is this. Not what you dislike. Because people usually mix up their dislikes and what they value. So I don't like being micromanaged. But what is it about micromanaging you don't like? You know?
Go deeper.
What are the values within? Is it because you're always over a person? Is it that you're really looking at all intricate parts of their day-to-day life? But then you're saying, oh, you've made a mistake here, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. Whereas if you took a step back and said, if you calm down a little bit, you don't have to micromanage them. But now if you do see they're underperforming, go in depth. Why are they? Have you assigned them something that they can't do? Because you've either trained them in one way. You've verbally trained them rather than visually trained them. You know?
Full circle.
Then that's a full circle about your leadership. So you can verbally say a presentation of figures and everything. Or you might send out a pack to read, some slides that they need to go through as leadership. Someone might not be learning from slides like that. Someone might need it verbally be explained. You know, some people say, if you show me once, I can do it. Some people just say, tell me once, and I can do it. And you have to learn the individuals there. And it all goes back to your leadership style. Don't lead in one way, because you'll get stuck. You'll stop being a leader. And a lot of people will not resonate with you.
So, and I want to ask you one more question, because just to kind of pull something from your experience that really stands out to you. So was there a moment, like a specific example, something that happened to you where you sat back and you're like, okay, I've done a good job in my leadership here, and you just saw it unfold in front of your eyes? I know you might have to, you got to go back through the archives.
Because it's a long time that you've been in leadership. I think it may be my BT time. I had a scrum leader who used to run the scrums and everything. And I remember he was always asking me, how do I become a product manager? How do I become a product manager? How do I become a product manager? And he was just one of the people I led underneath my team. And all I did through there was just enable him. So value proposition, which not a lot of leaders learn about. Now, value proposition is all about what value can you add for the product. Learn the product, understand how to explain the product, and then they have a business model canvas where one side is who you engage with, who helps you engage, what is your ultimate product that you're allowing out. And I used to just enable them either with books and value proposition. And I said, if you're ever a product manager, if you can add value proposition with what is the value for the business, but also what is the value for the customer, you can become a product manager. But then I also said, is what segment do you want to work in? Because in telecommunications, you can work in the internet, you can work on the telecoms, you could work on credits for the mobile, you could work on gift management, so how do you upload a gift, a reward system, you know? So there's different, so I said to him, like, what is your passion? Why would you want to be a product manager, and what kind of products do you enjoy? And then role reversal it. So if I was to hire you now in this position, what things would you think I would look for? And then show them, I'd look for this, I would look for that. And then they'd say, oh, okay, now I get it. But I always say, I remember I gave him books to read.
Yeah.
And then we'd have like one-to-one mentoring sessions. And then whenever he's prepping for an interview, I'd always get him to run through some questions and then change his styles, because a lot of people will go to interviews, but then they don't, because they're a Scrum, they understand all the Scrum questions, but when it's a product manager, you use STAR method.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what's a STAR method?
So the situation that you have, the task, what you achieved, and what was the result from it.
Similar to the resume. Yeah. Okay.
But explain your questions in that way. When you're telling your answer to someone, explain to them the situation that you were in that best describes that skill. You might not have it, but you might have been in a situation that describes that skill when you were a Scrum leader.
Tapping into storytelling.
Yeah, it's all around storytelling, because if I'm reading your resume and I really want to get in depth, I want to know what situation, what was the task that you did, what was the achievement from that, and then what results did that bring for the industry that you were working in?
Right.
Because that tells me, you know what you're doing. So I could give you a product, here's the product. How you're going to map it out? Okay, what
Here's
activity? You've already got that already.
So I'm assuming he ended up becoming a product manager.
He ended up becoming a product manager.
And it must have made you so proud.
Yeah, so I was proud to see him become a product manager, and it was just really good just to see that, when you put your mind towards something, you can always achieve it. It doesn't matter. And I guess that's with everyone. I think it just takes that shift in mindset and understanding to put preeminence in your time, like understand how much time I have, what I want to do. When I was going into tech, I used to take a lot of time outside of work. When I finished work, I used to hang around at tech events because I wanted to go into tech.
Yes.
I wasn't a techie. I didn't code. But if I spent time around developers and understood them outside of their working environment, I could really understand them inside of their working environment as well.
Yes.
So I think that's another thing, that always put yourself in environments that you want to be in. Same, the information that I gave to my ex-colleague, like, you want to be with product managers? Come and see how I run a product. Sit on a product practice with us.
Now, a lot of managers sometimes have this fear of promoting their employees, because then it's like, oh, I'm losing a good employee. Do you have any commentary around why that might be a bad management style, or a fear that managers need to let go of?
You only have that fear is if you haven't trained the rest of the team to step into that role. So always understand that if you understand your team well enough, you understand who can step in that role within your team.
Yeah.
So you're letting one go, but you have a whole team. And there is another team member that can actually step into those shoes, because subconsciously you're doing that work with them.
Wow.
When you're building up one, why are you not working on the others that you think could fit in that role?
Yes.
And then when the one does say, I want to step up, they step up into that role, because you've already embedded that belief into them, Because someone will say, oh, he's leaving. Maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
Show me. Okay, you want to do some Scrum lead management? Why don't you do some Scrums? Lead on some Scrums. Lead on this product.
Amazing.
Take a step back from the other person's perspective. Take some of the product work on the side. So now take the product notes. Create some stories. Add some new stories to Jira. Now explain them.
And is it just an iteration?
It's an iteration, because you never hold back your team. And if your team is lacking in some skills, it's because the manager's lacking in those skills.
That's one for the notes.
Yeah, because you basically haven't taught yourself.
Yeah.
If there's a gap in your knowledge, I don't think managers should have a knowledge or abundance of everything.
Yeah.
But you should have strengths. Yeah? And a manager should look at weaknesses that complement his strengths.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So a manager shouldn't be a jack of all trades and know everything, because that's what most managers think, they can do everything, which is not. You should set 5 of your best strengths. Then look at your weaknesses and which weakness complements one of your strengths. Yeah? And then you concentrate on that weakness because it makes you very great at that strength.
Ah, I see.
You know? It enables that strength more.
I like that. I've not heard that before. Thank you so much for sharing, details into your journey and the lessons from your leadership skills and your leadership experience. I think a lot of the audience can take that away and apply that. So I want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And before you go, I want to ask you one question. It's a question I ask everyone, and I think you know what it is. But Tan, what are you driven by?
Me, I'm driven by my own values and purpose. And I think it comes from my background. I've got this little entrepreneur on my shoulder continuously pushing me to say, you can do it, they say you've got the angel and demon. No, I've got this little guy that says, we're going to do this today. Let's do it.
Today.
Yeah. It's today we're going to do it. It's not tomorrow, because you always say tomorrow could be, but what if you achieve it today? What is your tomorrow? And you just take those steps. You might not see them, but if you take that step and enable yourself, that other step becomes a little bit easier. And that's how you drive yourself. I think it's taking those intricate steps, consistent but simple, I would say drives me. Being consistent but being very simple. Because the simple steps that you take, but you do it consistently, makes you great.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Yep. Thank you so much. And I think I've taken a lot away from all that you've shared, and I really like the idea of doing those micro team building activities and focusing on the connection of the team before trying to just simply engage one team member, pull them into a meeting and say, hey, without saying it directly, but you're saying, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you engaging? So instead of putting forth that message, it's let's all get together. Let's see how we connect. Let's see how we can work together in a fun situation. Okay, we work together in a fun situation. We can work together in this situation. So I think that was a beautiful message. I think it's something that we can take away and apply to our teams for the leaders that are listening. But I want to thank you so very much for being with us on the What Are You Driven By podcast. And I hope you guys tune in to the next episode where we interview more leaders to talk about what drives them and how they engage and motivate their teams.